Well, today we start a new series called Catchphrase, but if you've been with us for any period of time, these are probably not going to be sayings that come as any sort of surprise because we say them all of the time at Connection. But for those of us who are new to the church, it gives us an idea of like the DNA of the church, some of the core mantras of things that we believe and chase after. But those of us who are already plugged in and have been living this life, it's just that reminder of who we are and what we're trying to do here at Connection. But each step of the way throughout this series and really through the year, I want to focus in on the Gospel of Matthew. Some of you joined us last year as we went through the Old Testament, and we got a chance to kind of see what was going on there and how it all points to Jesus. But this year is more like, what did Jesus say, and what did Jesus do, and how can we do that? Right? What did Jesus say? What did he do? And can we just do that? I kind of wonder if all that we had was the gospel that is talking about Jesus' life, would that be enough? Right? To just be able to see what other people saw and recorded about his life, would that be enough? And so each step of this way through the catchphrase idea, we're going to take some of those pieces, those elements, and connect them back to things that Jesus said and did. So one of the most important things that we can do is to follow. And I would say, like, it's pretty exciting anytime that we get to sit in service or to watch the ministries of the church and to see our young people plugged in. Anybody else excited by that? So to see a new member on the worship team today, like if you appreciate any of the tech stuff, like I can almost guarantee you the teens are involved in that in some way, shape, or form. If you appreciate having kids ministry available to you, the teens are hugely involved with making our kids ministry happen. And they're doing so many great things. And if I can, just for a moment as a dad, kind of talk about my own children. So we have 3 kids. The oldest, Isaiah, he's working in Lincoln and helping out with Campus Crusade for Christ. There's 2 different organizations. Campus Crusade or Crew at UNL. And it's exciting to see that. This summer he led a Bible study. He's leading one again this fall. And to see that lived out is amazing. To see Elijah, he's over at UNK kind of doing his thing. But if you don't know this about Elijah, like whenever COVID was happening, he was sitting side saddle as we were trying to figure out some of this technology stuff. And then he was also rolling that out for Columbus Public School and a lot of the streaming and stuff. Like he was pretty instrumental for making that happen. But he's always been a sports nut. I remember when he was a kid, there's a football game on and he's doing the pregame show. He's calling the plays. He's doing the halftime show, the post-game show, and if you're in Nebraska, the post-game show, and all of those things, right? But he was doing that at a young age, and now that's what he's going to school for. He loves sports. He loves being able to call games and to help out. I'm just a nut on the backside of things. Hannah is actually, we're going to take her down to do a year-long residency. We're leaving after church today to drive to Dallas and then on past Houston tomorrow to drop her off for a year where she's going to be working in a church to learn about church planting, right? Because she's been riding side saddle since we started. So about 7 years of age, hopping in the truck with me in the morning, grabbing the trailer, unloading cases, and setting up at Lost Creek Elementary School. And excited to see what God is going to be doing through her. But a lot of that is really just kind of following in steps, right? And there is so much that I can look at the kids and go, man, they're just doing what they've seen, right? They're just doing what they know to be true and chasing after that. And as we follow after Jesus, I think the same thing can be true of us, right? We're not trying to do something new. We're just taking some time to sit at the feet of Jesus and ask the questions, what did he say? What did he do? And how can I do that? How can I do that? And so this morning we're going to open up in the Gospel of Matthew, and we're going to start in chapter 4, page 809 in the black Bibles we provide. Matthew chapter 4. If you've been around the church much at all, you've probably heard this passage. If you're brand new, let me introduce you to this. It says in chapter 4, verse 18, while they were walking by the Sea of Galilee, so this would be the area north of Jerusalem and Bethlehem that we're familiar with. So they're by the Sea of Galilee. And he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother. They were casting nets into the sea, for they are fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets, and they followed him. And going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets. And he called them. Immediately they left their boat and their father, and they followed him. There's something amazing about this, but let me give you a little bit of foundational information. It reads in Matthew like Jesus is just walking along and he sees a couple fishermen. He's like, "Hey guys, come follow me." Right? And he just calls them out of nothing, but that's not necessarily the case. Andrew, the one that we don't hear about too much, was actually following John the Baptist. And he was there on the scene when John the Baptist saw Jesus coming to him and said, "Hey, look, the Lamb of God who comes to take away the sin of the world." Right? And so Andrew knew that Jesus was the one that was told of to be the Messiah. Now, he was Jewish. The Jewish faith taught them that there was a Messiah, an anointed one, that was going to come from them, that was going to be a king to rule over them, but also a savior to redeem them from the oppression that they were facing. And so he believed that, and he also believed that Jesus was that savior. He was the Messiah. And so now he goes back and he tells Peter, "Hey, you got to come check this out. This is the one we've been waiting for. Come and see." Right? But here we are a little bit later. They've gone back to the area of their family along the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus is walking through. And so he spots Andrew and Peter again. He says, "Hey, come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Let's unpack that statement, because I think the first thing that we need to know is if we're a true believer in Jesus is that we need to follow after his footsteps, right? So he says, "Follow me." That's the same call for each of us. Right, that we're going to follow, and what kind of cool stuff could we learn just by following after Jesus? I mean, think about these disciples. They get to go with him and sit in the front row as he's teaching other people. They get to watch in his life, how his life measures up, how there's complete and total alignment between what he says and what he does. And we're going to follow that journey a little bit, but let's unpack it a little bit just in the following verses. Jesus, went through all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. Right? Everything about Jesus is all about the kingdom of God is here. Right? It's here. And he was healing every disease and every affliction among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria. And they brought him all the sick, those oppressed with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, those having seizures and paralytics. And he healed them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis, and from Jerusalem and Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. People were hearing about Jesus because he was teaching pretty boldly. He was teaching with authority. He was healing people. As people came in and had need, he was speaking and touching in their lives, and others were hearing about it, and the fame just continued to grow, and they had a front row seat to all of this. And they would have missed absolutely every part of it if they had not chosen to follow. The first step in our faith is to follow Jesus. Right? The first step in our faith is to follow Jesus. We have to follow his footsteps, which brings us back to those questions. What did he say? What did he do? And how can we do that? Right? Because to be a true follower of Jesus, we do those things. We can say Christian. Christian in our context today, in our world today, can have a variety of meanings, right? That I simply believe. But when we understand the root, the origin of that word belief, or to have faith, it is always accompanied by action. Action that follows up, right? They believed that Jesus was the Messiah, the anointed one, the Savior. And so because they believe that he's been the one they've been preparing for, the one they've been hoping for, then they absolutely left everything to follow him. So what are we following? right? Are we following the world's agenda? Are we following our own agenda? Are we striving to follow after Jesus? Because to be a true follower, we follow in his footsteps. Now, what you might be saying is, okay, I'll follow Jesus, but I need to tend to these things, right? I need to get the kids out of the house first, right? I need to make sure that I get far enough in my career first, have enough money first, right? Whatever it is, conquer this addiction, or make sure that I'm not as bad as I was and I need to be better before Jesus. But I want you to see that next phrase, I will make you. I will make you. Jesus didn't call them because they were perfect. He calls them because he could perfect them, right? He was the guy that could redeem them. He was the guy that could save them. They didn't have to fix it. They didn't have to know it. They didn't know the stuff that they were going to learn with Jesus. A disciple simply means a learner, right? But a learner isn't just in the classroom, but it's being mentored, being modeled after. And they rubbed shoulders with Jesus for 3 years and got to take all of this in. And it was through that process, through his teaching and through his living, that they were molded into his image. They were learners because they followed. Follow me and I will make you. Yeah, some of you've been sitting on the sideline for too long trying to fix it yourself instead of just giving it to Jesus. Just give it to Jesus and let him make you. Those things that you've been holding on to, it's time to let them go. Drop the nets. Leave that stuff behind and follow. Leave the excuses. Let him make you. What does he make you into? Well, he told the disciples, I will make you into fishers of men. Jesus loved to speak in parables. And I understand if you're like me, fishing is kind of like, right? Some of you love it. It's not derogatory. I get it. Right? Some of you like fishing. And you would understand this analogy. But some of you, like you grew up in the city. What you know is the city. My kids are that way. Like we didn't do a whole lot of that. So this idea of fishing is kind of foreign. And they're like, oh, we're having fish sticks tonight. That's what we're doing. Right? There are things, right, that we have. But what's the analogy? The analogy is simply this. Jesus didn't call them just to sit in a classroom. He didn't call them to sit in a service on a Sunday morning. He called them into action. Follow, and I will make you. And what am I going to make you? I'm going to make you somebody who goes out and finds other followers. It fits really well with what another guy, Paul, said. Follow me as I follow Christ. Follow me as I follow Christ. I'm following him so closely that you're going to see Jesus in me. And this is parents, teachers, right, leaders. We need to be somebody that other people find worthy of following. And the only way that we're worthy of following is if we step into the footsteps of Jesus. We just track with him, do what he did, listen to what he said. The next thing that we do is we shine his light. Chapter 5, verse 13. Chapter 5, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. Right? It's lost its power, its potency. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. And it gives light to the whole house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works, and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. The second thing that we need to do is we need to make sure we're shining his light. We follow in his footsteps and we shine his light. This gives us a why, so that other people may see the good deeds and glorify God. As we follow Jesus, we shine so other people can see it. And so we have to ask this question, and it's a really hard question. The question is, if I don't follow Jesus, am I really a follower of Jesus? Because when we change the terminology to Christian, we can empty it of its power in our context today. But I want you to think of it as a Christ follower. In order to follow Christ, I have to actually follow Christ. Can I be a follower of Christ if I'm not shining his light? Right? If I'm not shining the light of Christ, which means that I need to let other people know the reason for the hope that I have is Jesus. Right, that my life is being changed, it's transformed. There's something different, and I'm different because I'm starting to look more like Jesus, and Jesus is being seen more clearly through me, through the way I talk, through the way that I behave. right? And others are drawn to that. Can you really be a follower of Christ if you're not shining his light? Another way we've said that around here is you have to be different to make a difference. You have to be different. Chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 35. And Jesus went throughout the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. This is the same thing as said in chapter 4, right? And when he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Because they saw Jesus healing people. But more than seeing him healing people, because they were in such close proximity to him, they actually saw his compassion on people. If we want to be a true follower of Jesus, we need to have that kind of compassion for other people. And I know it doesn't always come natural. For some of us, more natural than others. But to be actually moved on behalf of the needs of the people that we're doing life with. And as we follow closer behind Jesus, we're made more into his image. We start to see the needs around us the same way that Jesus would see those needs. And we start to step in and help answer some of those needs. We can't help but bring the hope of Jesus to people who are hurting because we are moved with the same compassion that he was moved with. This needs to be an expression of his church, of his followers, chasing after him. I want you to see what's next in verse 37. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest." When we follow after Jesus, we begin to pray for the things that Jesus would pray for. And he tells his disciples to pray for workers in the harvest. So if we believe that people are far from God, and we want to see them find the hope that is in God, then we can't help but pray for people to go do that. As Jesus is walking through the villages, as people are being brought to them, and if you don't know the stories, like people were fighting through the crowds, people were being lowered through ceilings, as they were fighting their way into the presence of Jesus to be able to experience the life and healing that he could offer, he couldn't possibly reach everybody. Not in human form. He couldn't reach everybody. And the disciples would have seen this. They would have seen the crowds gathered around. And he says to them, look, the harvest is plentiful. There are so many people who are hurting, who are struggling. They need help. They need hope. And we need to pray that God would provide workers for this harvest. And when you and I start praying the things that Jesus prayed, we'll start doing the things that Jesus did. And I think that if we start praying this prayer, Lord, prepare workers for the harvest. Prepare workers for the harvest. He's going to change our heart. And you and I are going to be at the front of the line. And we're going to see the needs around us because we're going to have the compassion of Jesus. And we're going to follow a man who became a servant to all. And we're going to strive to serve other people the way that Jesus served them. We're going to do the things that he wants us to do by praying, allowing him to mold us, right? Because we're following him. We're going to see what he did. And we're going to try to do it. So we have to make sure we're sharing his compassion. The last one is from Matthew 28, so the very end of the Gospel of Matthew. And you'll hear us talk about this one a lot, and there's a good reason for that. So at the end of Matthew, we're at a point in Jesus' life and ministry. He's died on the cross. He's been buried in the tomb. He's been raised back to life. He's appeared to his followers. And now he's getting ready to ascend back to heaven. Right? This is what we believe about Jesus. This is what's recorded in the gospel message here, as well as in the other gospels and in the first part of Acts. Right? And as Jesus is getting ready to leave, he leaves these words. So think about this. The best way I can frame this is if somebody who you truly love is on their deathbed and they give you their last words, how much weight do they hold? Right? And this is Jesus' last words, and he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. right? All of God's authority has been given to me. And that's the authority you have to do this. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. Therefore, go. Some would say that this, in its truest forms, means as you go. Right? As you go to school, as you go to work, as you're hanging out and doing the hobbies and just doing life, as you're hanging out with your neighbors in your neighborhood, as you go, the call is this: make disciples. Right? But the thing is, you can't make disciples of Jesus if you're not following after Jesus. You can't make disciples of Jesus unless you're shining the light of Jesus more clearly in your life. It's pretty hard to make followers of Jesus if you don't have the compassion of Jesus living through your life. And so each step of the way, and here ultimately, we could ask this question: are you really a follower of Jesus if you're not making followers of Jesus? That hits hard, doesn't it? It's a little bit different. But Jesus doesn't call the disciples to sit in a classroom or on a Sunday service. He calls them to make disciples. Right, to go and fish for men. You and I are called into our neighborhoods, into our families, into our workplaces, our environments, to make disciples. And we do that by learning from Jesus what he did and what he said, and we try to do that in our life. And then we teach other people what Jesus said and what he did, and they can do that in their life. Because follow me as I follow Christ. We're somebody worth following because we're following after him. So we want to make these disciples. Another thing that you might hear us say a lot around here is, what's your next step? What's your next step? What are you going to do with what you've learned? It's a really important question with any information that we get, but especially if we're sitting at the feet of Jesus. What are we going to do with what we've learned? What's our next step? So maybe today it's just like, I need to follow after Jesus. I've been trying to do it my own way. I've been carving my own path. I've been chasing after the models that were set before me in my family and my workplace with my friends, but those models have just left me broken. They've not brought me the kind of healing that I need, and I need to surrender that and to follow after Jesus, right? Because I'm going to go make disciples. And how do I do that? I'm going to get baptized. I'm going to die to my old self. I'm going to lay it down in the water, and I'm going to sign up for Team Jesus. And I'm going to come out of that water in a new identity, striving to be like Jesus. But I'm also going to teach other people to obey all that Jesus has taught, to obey all that he's taught. I need to do that. I need to give that. So maybe that first step today is you go, hey, I've been following the wrong path, and I need to follow after Jesus. Maybe today that next step is, I claim Jesus, but I'm doing a horrible job shining the light. I mean, if you were to look at my life, you would not see Jesus in me. And it's time to start living it. Right? Maybe it's to really embrace the compassion. And this takes time. It really does. It takes time. And we're so busy. Can I just say, one of the bigger things that we struggle with as Americans today is busyness. Anybody else have a case of the busies? Busy keeps us from doing a lot of things. And yet it's at the cost of doing a lot of things. And sometimes to do the right things, we have to stop being so busy doing all the wrong things. And so we need to spend time sitting at the feet of Jesus and embracing his compassion. Right? And then we need to strive to teach others. Maybe you've been a Christian for a long time, and it's time that you actually started teaching somebody else what it means to follow after Christ. Right? I share this with somebody who I've known for quite a while, and it rings true for almost every believer that's been a part of the church for any period of time, right? It's time to stop sitting and waiting for people to pour into your life, and time to start pouring into the lives of others, right? If you've been a Christian, I'm just going to assign a value to it. If you've been a Christian for over 3 years, these guys only spent 3 years with Jesus. If you've been a Christian for 3 years, it's time to get off the bench and into the game, right? We're not here just participating as a crowd, but we're leading the change. We're bringing that to other people. So what's your next step in this journey? At Connection, we have a discipleship process. Right, so we say that we exist to connect people in the Columbus area to Jesus Christ. It's not a new mission. It's the one Jesus gave us. Right? Go and make disciples. We just put it in our context. Let's connect people in the Columbus area to Jesus Christ. We do that by connecting with Sunday morning gatherings, by growing through small group experiences, by serving one another, and by sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. Right? And if we do that, if we can join him, that doesn't mean things are going to be perfect. I guarantee you that. If you're trying to look for A, B, C, and D, all right, now I'm a Christian, you're probably going to fail horribly at this. Right? But if you can follow this process and just sit at the feet of Jesus, church is way more than a Sunday morning gathering. Right? It's an experience to be embraced and to be lived out. And we can do that in community, but we also need to do that by getting out in the community with other people. And so we need to take these steps in our faith journey together. And I hope that is the challenge that you're experiencing today. And if you've never stepped into a small group, today is a great day to do that because they're just launching this week. And after this service, after the last song, the tables are going to be available, and they're going to have the different small group leaders at them, and you're going to have a chance to figure out, what's it mean to dig into this? You know, to be real and authentic with my faith, to open up about the challenges I'm experiencing or about the questions I have in my faith journey, and just striving to grow together as we seek to follow after Jesus. Amen.